Hey guys, I'm Tyler and welcome back. Today we're going to be making a grill caddy so that I can have all of my grilling apparatus in one location as the weather improves and we are finally able to fire up the grill. I'm going to be making this out of some maple, which was left over from the kitchen table build, accented with some walnut. So my first order of business was to climb up onto my DIY pallet racking and find some sections of walnut and maple that would work. Once my little helper and I got the pieces into the shop, I used a tape measure and a pencil to mark out where I needed to cut out the good sections of wood to build these grill caddies. A quick visit over to the miter saw station to cut everything down to a rough length, not its final length, just a more manageable size to run around the shop. And then onto the bandsaw to resaw everything down to a more manageable thickness. I tried to resaw as much as I could so that I wasn't churning all of this beautiful wood into shavings at the jointer and planer. Even though I did do the resawing, I still have to joint and plane to make sure I have nice square surfaces for working on the table saw. I first jointed one of the wide surfaces and then tilted that wide surface up against the fence of the jointer and jointed a straight edge. And then I did it again and again and again for all of my different pieces. Once I had those two straight and square edges, it was onto the planer to square up the other side. And one of the true joys of woodworking is sending a rough piece of wood through the planer and seeing the beauty that comes out on the other side. Once all of my boards were squared in thickness over at the jointer and planer, it was onto the table saw to square up that final edge before glue up. This video has been brought to you by Carolina Shoe. If you guys would like your own pair of Carolina work boots or a different pair of shoe, follow the link in the description below and use the code DIYTyler10 for 10% off your very own pair. But hurry, the offer expires soon. Also, make sure you stick around this video to the end. We might be giving away a free pair of boots. The bottom portion of the grill caddy, which is made from the maple, it is a beautiful spalted maple, is held together with wood glue and a couple clamps, not too tight so that I didn't bow the bottom. And then I squared up those bottom portions on the table saw, first using the fence and then coming back with a crosscut sled. If you haven't deducted by now, I'm actually building two of these grill caddies. One lucky winner will get one of these. Stay tuned to the end so you can enter the giveaway for this grill caddy and a couple other awesome prizes from our sponsors. While I was over manning the table saw, I decided to cut down all of the sections of walnut to make the side portions and the handles of the grill caddies. Once I had them cut on the table saw, it was on to cutting some miters using the miter saw. I got started with laying out all of the side portions by cutting one miter on the side of every single piece. And then using the bottom portion that we squared up just a moment ago, I lined up all my miters and then marked the opposite side, and it was back to the miter saw and then back to the workpiece to check my alignment and back and forth again. This is a tedious process, but I recommend going slow with fine cuts so that you can tune in that miter perfectly. Once I got all the walnut sections cut to their proper length based on the bottom of the piece, it was time to lay out the handles. I cut a template out of some paper, transferred that over to a piece of wood that was more sturdy, and then transferred that template onto my sections of walnut. My first tool visit was to the bandsaw where I cut close to the line, but not all the way up to it. And then onto one of my favorite tools, although I don't use it very often, the spindle sander, to fine tune that cut right up to the pencil mark. You saw me make a couple marks with my ice pick when I was laying out the template, and that is so that I know where to drill for the finger holds in the handle. And I did that with a 1-inch Forstner bit and then followed it up with a jigsaw to get me a nice straight handle line. A slight round over on all the pieces eases over the edges to prevent any splinters. Just make sure that you don't hit the open miter cuts and gouge your piece with the router bit. And last step before assembly, I sanded everything up to 220 grit with the random orbit sander. And the assembly is done with wood glue and 23 gauge pin nails to hold everything together until I can get the splines and the dowels into the workpiece. As I mentioned before, there's going to be some splines to reinforce the miters, and there's going to be 2 on each corner of the grill caddy. I put them into the workpiece using the table saw and a quick DIY spline chip. I cut out the splines using the bandsaw and then glued them into place, making sure I had a nice tight joint with no gaps visible on both sides. I'm also going to be putting some thin dowels through the sides of the grill caddy into the bottom for some extra reinforcements. One of the first videos I did on this YouTube channel was making these DIY dowel makers out of a scrap piece of mild steel. These things are awesome to have around because I can make any dowel I want, any size, out of any species of wood at any time. Once I had my dowels made, it was back to the grill caddies, and I used a brad point bit to drill a hole to the proper depth. On the side grain side of the bottom section, I put 3 evenly spaced dowels, and on the short grain side, which expands more with the changes in the season, I put 2 dowels towards the center, and then installed the dowels using some wood glue. I followed up with a wet rag to try to get all the squeeze out off of the workpiece that I could. Once the splines and the dowels had dried, I very carefully cut them as close as I could to the grill caddy using the bandsaw. A quick follow-up with sandpaper knocks any remaining edge off in no time. For the finish on these grill caddies, I'm going with 3 coats of General Finishes Armor Seal with a semi-gloss sheen, which is my go-to finish for hardwood. The timing for this couldn't have been more perfect. As soon as they cured, it was a beautiful day to test out the capabilities and grill up some filet mignon and some burgers for the kids. The grill caddy worked exactly as I was hoping, and I'll be glad to have it for the rest of the summer. And for those of you who care to know, the filet mignon was outstanding. This video has been brought to you by Carolina Shoe. These are their boots, which I can tell you from experience are made to work. These are the best work boots that I've ever owned in my life, and I've gone through many a pair. I actually have 2 different versions of the Carolina boots. I have a slip-on pair, and then I have this waterproof tie-up version. And I can tell you, they are fantastic boots. They're a little bit stiff at first, but give them time and the genuine leather will break in and they will be fantastic on your feet. Yes, they're built for work and we work hard in them, but it is nice to untie them and grill up some delicious dinner, especially when the weather is fantastic like it is right now. So I made that grill caddy tray and actually built 2. One of them is for you guys. Go down to the description of this video, click the link and see how you can win that, and Carolina Boots and I will send that out to you. I'm DIY Tyler. You guys have a good one.